You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. We have a great show planned for you today. John Beaver is President and CEO of BIOLASE Incorporated, and he's our guest. John, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Let's get right into it. You've been with BIOLASE since 2017. Tell us, what first attracted you to this firm?
You know, it's interesting, Rick, when BIOLASE called me back in 2017 to potentially join the company, I was not from the dental industry and not from the laser industry, so I knew very little about dental lasers for sure. And as I was doing my research and started peeling the onion back, what amazed me was you have this technology that, knowing what I know today, every dentist should have. You have a company like BIOLASE that's been in business for a while and the global leader in this space. But yes, the market is only penetrated less than 10%. So I saw it as a huge opportunity to join what I believe would be a fast-growing company.
So before we talk about the firm, let's talk a little bit more about you. What was your background, if not in the space that BIOLASE is in?
Yeah, so I grew up always wanting to be a doctor, and so I went off to the University of Texas, set my sights on that. And after a couple of years, I decided, well, maybe that's not for me, so I became an accountant. My first job was with Monsanto when they were a Fortune 50 chemical company, and for the first 25 years of my life, really went through the various jobs in accounting, finance, and the chemical industry, all working for publicly traded companies. Private equity backed. I used to joke that was the worst of both worlds. And then had an opportunity back in 2009 to join a solar startup company here in California in San Jose. And so I did that for about 7 or 8 years before joining BIOLASE.
So what is it about you and your background that you think caused them to reach out to you, given the fact that you weren't from or in their industry at the time?
Yeah, so I think it was my experience has been manufacturing from day one. So whether or not it was chemicals, solar silicon and solar cells, or dental lasers, it was all manufacturing, making something. I think what also intrigued BIOLASE was the growth phase that we went in my solar company, going from zero revenue to $100 million run rate revenue in a year. So that high growth, and that's certainly what we expected BIOLASE. So I think that intrigued them, and also the fact that as a CFO at the solar industry, in the solar industry and also in the chemical industry, I kind of was maybe, I say, more well-rounded than some people coming out of finance. I'd been involved in marketing, commercial, manufacturing, kind of run the gamut, as you do during startups, right?
So we're going to put a pin on that piece. I'm going to want to come back to it, but I think for the goodness of the audience, we ought to talk a little bit about BIOLASE. And so tell us a little bit more about the firm.
Yeah, so BIOLASE is the world's leading laser dental company. We make two types of lasers. One is an all-tissue laser under our WaterLase brand, and the other is a soft tissue laser or a diode laser under our Epic brand. So from an all-tissue laser standpoint, as I mentioned, we are the leader in the industry. We sell about 60% of these type of lasers to dentists worldwide. We sell in the U.S. to a direct commercial organization, direct sales organization, and we sell in over 80 countries worldwide through distributors. And so for WaterLase, the all-tissue laser, has over 80 FDA cleared indications, all the way from treating periodontal disease to healing sick implants, to taking your kid to get a cavity restored without having a shot or the drill, kind of less pain, less shot dentistry, frenectomies in a less invasive way. So it's all around providing what we believe is really the gold standard of care in dentistry, a less invasive nature of the procedures. And when you look at the body, the mouth is the last part of the body that the lasers haven't taken over as that gold standard of care, right? You would never think about going to get corrective vision surgery with that guy still using a scalpel. LASIK has taken over, certainly, and I certainly believe that will be the case with lasers in dentistry in the near term.
So let's go back to the start, if we could, a little bit of a history lesson on BIOLASE. Who decided, and who came up with the technology that allowed the company
So
to
BIOLASE
even
was
start?
formed back in actually the 1980s, and it was all around optics and lasers. Around I would say the mid 90s, the company really started focus on the dental segment. We have over 300 patents, most of them in dentistry, but we also have ophthalmology patents, dermatology patents, veterinarian patents, for the lasers. I kid that it seems like all lasers, the start of lasers, kind of go through Russia. One of our founders was a Russian physicist, and got into lasers as well. And so we saw, I think, back in around 95, 96, a real benefit and a real need to have lasers in dentistry. And so we developed, and we're the only company that sells lasers today that were developed, conceived specifically for dentists. Our competitors have and they put out good lasers, but they've all come from medical or derm background.
So let's talk about what it sounds like to me is new technology adoption in the dental industry. So what have you learned in your time with BIOLASE about that technology adoption?
Yeah, I will tell you that adoption is always slower than you think, and then it becomes an overnight success 20 years in the making. It is amazing. What I've learned is really, I've studied a lot about the technology adoption curve. And when you look at that, it really doesn't matter what industry, or even if you're looking at iPhones, on your block, you have the first, say, 5% of the population, target population, that are the innovators, right? And those are the ones that want to be the first one on the street with the new technology. They don't care if it works all the time. And they really don't care about training that much. They can figure it out. And we did a great job in selling to that segment of the dental population the first 10 or 15 years we were doing this. However, that's only about the first 5% of the population, right? Then after that, you get to the early adopter segment, which is the next, call it 10 to 15% after that first 5%. And that's a whole different marketing and awareness campaign. That segment of the population requires that the laser, or whatever technology they're incorporating works all the time, that is intuitive, that they have plenty of training, after sales support, continuous education. And that's really where we've made, I think, the biggest strides at BIOLASE over the last few years, is changing the company to really address that early adopter segment of the population, which is what we're in now. And then if you look at those change curves, once you get about halfway through that early adopter segment, penetrating with technology, it really becomes exponential growth.
It sounds like years ago, I read a book by Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, where he talked about how technology.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Crossing the chasm. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Different segments require different approaches. And that's really great that you came in with that knowledge and experience. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's powerful to read books and to be knowledgeable about what's out there. So many good ideas that you can put into practice.
You can actually learn from history.
Yes.
Go figure.
Right. And moving into that major market where people are buying it every day, it's a lot about who else like me has one of your systems too, right? It's reference selling and making them comfortable.
Absolutely. I will tell you that I said BIOLASE did a great job, as I said, with the innovator segment of the population, but then the company stagnated around that. And one other thing I've learned in the dental industry is nothing sells capital equipment like peer-to-peer referral. And so a dentist telling a friend that's a dentist about how great they're doing in their office, incorporating this technology, And to do that, to get those peer-to-peer referrals, you have to treat every customer like they're your favorite, your best customer. And that's what we're attempting to do.
Customer service. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've had an interesting career, and even at BIOLASE, you've had an interesting career in that you started as the CFO, then you took on the COO responsibilities, and now, as I said in the open, you're the CEO and president at BIOLASE. So I wonder if you could reflect on that arc of your career within BIOLASE, and what's different about being the CEO of the company versus maybe the CFO or the COO?
Well, as I mentioned, when I joined with BIOLASE, one of the things that I think attracted them to me and certainly attracted me to them was the opportunity I felt to get involved in a lot of aspects of the business. So even though coming in as CFO, almost 5 years ago now, one of the first things I did was take on formed a team to look at the customer journey and how do we make that customer journey better. Nothing to do with finance, right? It could be furthest away from that. And it really was a cross-functional team. And so, getting involved with the customer, going out on Ridealongs with the account managers, territory managers that we have, and seeing what the customer is saying, what potential customers are saying. That's the stuff I love doing. So I was doing that as a CFO anyway, from day one. So from that aspect, my job really hasn't changed that much. I certainly have more support on the finance side, so I spend less time doing concentrating on that. But we're a fairly small company. We have less than 200 employees, so very much like a startup company as well. And so in these type of companies, you just roll up your sleeve and you get involved in everything. And certainly everything that you want to be involved in, you can be involved in. So that's been great. Certainly during my 5 years here, the company and the employees I just thank them every day for allowing me to come in and having them train me and educate me on the dental space. We have people that have been in dentistry, so much longer than me that, I like to say have forgotten more about dentistry than I'll learn in a lifetime. But they've been so gracious with their, with their knowledge. It's really allowed me to hit the ground running.
I've seen in social media that you have been out in the field, and you still are doing that. And I'm wondering, what have those trips from your perspective helped you to learn about the dental industry, meeting with prospective dentists and current clients that are dentists? I mean, what are you picking up just from being close to the business like that?
So one of the first things I learned, because one of the questions I had was, why hasn't this taken off quicker than it has, right? Why is the adoption still under 10% for all tissue laser technology? And what I heard, Rick, was uncertainty. I'm unsure if I can learn how to utilize this technology and to learn how to work it. I'm unsure if I can make money at it. I'm unsure if my office staff will accept it. I'm unsure if the patients will accept it. And so that was really the advent of our Waterlase exclusive trial program, where we invite dentists, mainly general practitioners, but some specialists, to come in. We give them 2 days of free training. We give them the laser for 45 days. We work with them. We train them. We track their procedures to see how much money they're making on it. We help train their office staff. And then in 45 days, we say, would you like to buy the laser, or do you want us to come and get it? And so far, we've had about 50% say they want to buy the laser, which has been a great track record for us. So certainly learn that. The other thing I've learned during the ride-alongs is, from a territory manager standpoint, we have about 25 territory managers in the U.S. And a lot of times those guys, I think, feel like they're on an island alone. They're away from corporate. They're working on their own, a lot of responsibility, a lot of accountability for them. And it's, me going out and trying to get the rest of the team communicating as well with them to let them know that, it's not an island. They have a lot of resources that we can provide from the mothership, out here in Southern California. So that's been interesting. But probably the most gratifying aspect of the ride-alongs has been actually talking with the customers and getting a lot of doctor testimonials. It's amazing how many doctors out there that they'll close up their practice if the laser breaks or something, that they can't use it for that day. They use it on every patient, every case, and getting those testimonials have been, to me, those are gold nuggets. And hearing that, I've also heard about some things that we can do better, and that's been I've been very appreciative of that as well. And we've made some changes to our service department to better respond to some of those things that I've heard.
Early in my career, I was a salesperson, and many times the president would come and do a ride along because he had a sales background. And one of the things that I noticed is the power of the questions that he would ask me. And then the other thing was, whenever offered a suggestion and then it got implemented, the pride of ownership that I had as just a field level person that I was helping the company was really very gratifying. I'm sure in your experience, John, you have that same sense.
Oh, absolutely. One of the questions I ask, during every ride along with the territory managers, what are we doing well? What can we do better? Right? Because nobody knows more than they do out in the field every day, right? And so we've gotten a lot of good ideas from that conversation.
So let's talk about sharpening the saw. In addition to traveling with the sales and meeting with the clients and prospects, what else are you doing, John, to stay current and sharpen your saw as a CEO?
Yeah, for the most part, what I concentrate on, given the relatively short period of time I've been in the industry, is read as much as I can about the industry, about clinical papers that may impact us. Try to go to as many shows and conferences as I can. I'm on 3 or 4 different mailing lists from various Dr. Bicuspid is an example, where I'm reading every a pretty funny name, right? But
Right.
Dental Town, just to name a couple, where I'm reading about those, and something piques my curiosity, I'll click it. So I usually spend 30 minutes to an hour every day just on things like that, kind of early in the day, trying to continue to educate about this industry that I know I can always learn more about.
And I think that's quite powerful, having a a learner's mindset when it comes to your industry. Sometimes people have been in a space for long enough to figure like they've got it dialed in, and that's usually when things start to go a little bit off the rails because they've stopped paying attention to some degree. So I applaud you for that. What has been COVID's impact on your firm and the dental industry at large?
Yeah, so from our firm standpoint, it certainly was a seismic shift almost overnight. Unfortunately, we went through some furloughs, some salary reductions, just really to survive. We were able to come out of COVID once dental offices started coming back to work in kind of late 2020 by bringing everybody back. We had everybody back working the summer of 2020, which was great. And certainly we're full tilt now and back to pre-COVID and surpassing pre-COVID revenue levels. So I think we're past that point. One of the advantages that we had, though, and certainly didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it, we quickly pivoted as dental offices were shut down in the spring and early summer of 2020 to doing a lot of webinars. I mentioned that education is so important to this segment that we're trying to introduce the technology to. And we had over 300 webinars during about a 3-month period. And we touched about 20,000 dentists, which was tremendous, educational, showing what the technology can do, both on the soft tissue and the all tissue space. Now, what that allowed us to do is, once we could get back into the office, we had a significant number of marketing qualified leads. So, we said, you went to this webinar, you said you wanted to learn more about this technology, here we are. And so that allowed us, I think, to certainly hit the ground running. From an overall industry standpoint, certainly from what I've seen and the stats I've seen, everybody's back at the dentist. And I'm talking mainly U.S. here. International has come back slower than the U.S., and every country's different. But in the U.S., I think everybody's 100% back. The most challenging part of COVID, I think, for dentistry today is the great resignation that occurred.
Mhm.
I hear over and over again how dental offices are understaffed. They've had a significant amount of hygienists leave the industry permanently, retired and so forth, or go on and do different things. Dental assistants, front office staff. And so I think that's the dental industry's biggest challenge today, is just finding enough talented people.
It's interesting. I don't want to skip over that. That's a very important reality for your clients and for the marketplace. But coming back to your experience doing the webinars, I don't know how many you had planned before COVID kind of forced you to find an alternative, but sometimes those constraints can open up opportunities that I would assume you're still doing webinars at a more accelerated pace today because they prove to be a good way to introduce your product to new prospects, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably we were doing, I don't know, 3 or 4 a month, and went to at least one a day, if not more than that. We've scaled back a little bit because dentists are now back in the office and they have their full-time job, and so that we don't have that captured audience, right, captive audience, if you will. But we still do more educational events, more training events than we ever have
Mhm.
today.
I love that in out of adversity becomes an opportunity and an enlightenment and then an adjustment in the business model moving forward. So for anyone who may be feeling a little bit challenged by something, find the opportunity in that constraint that might give you a brighter future. Thank you for sharing your experience. I wonder what the future's holding though, John, for BIOLASE. Describe your vision for the future.
Well, one of the things I put on my LinkedIn banner is one of my goals is to raise a generation of kids not afraid of going to the dentist. How great would
Amen.
that be? And guess what? If kids aren't afraid to go in the dentist, and teenagers aren't, young adults aren't, right? And so we get them early. And so I'm very passionate about providing Orange County with better dental health care for children. I'm on the board of Healthy Smiles for Kids of Orange County, and we've donated some lasers to them and training and so forth. I love that they're getting that training. But from a vision at BIOLASE, it's all around accelerating that adoption curve. Okay, I know this is going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that every dentist will have a laser in their office 100 years from now. Okay. Question is, how soon can we make that happen? And so everything that we do at BIOLASE, everything I do, I would say every waking minute that I spend at BIOLASE is around finding out ways to accelerate that adoption curve. Be it training, be it the trial program that we mentioned. We have a few other things up our sleeve as well. So it's all around that. It's all about accelerating that adoption curve.
Well, and that's a lofty goal to make a trip to the dentist not something that people worry about because you're right, it's not just children, but we carry that later in life too. I don't know what it is about the dental office that can freak people out, but I'll attest that for years I was one of those people until I found the dentist who I had total confidence in. And then over time, because I've been with him for almost 25 years now, I've learned that I'm going to be okay by going there. So I can't say I look forward to it, but I'm not worried about
I
it
will
at
tell you
all.
that when I moved here, my prior dentist in Houston did not have a laser. When I moved here, I went to waterlaze.com, put in my zip code, found a Waterlaze dentist near me. And one of my favorite days, every 3 or 4 months is when I go to the dentist and get the laser treatment. I just love it. And we talk shop a little bit, but
Sure.
I certainly never am frightened of going to a dentist.
So you mentioned the platform there that people can go to. How do people learn more about BIOLASE or connect with you on
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
so we're big on almost all the social media platforms. So not only our website, biolase.com, BIOLASE, but we're big on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We do a lot of YouTube and Vimeo videos as well, and people can ask to link up with me on LinkedIn at John Beaver.
Well, John, I want to thank you for giving of your time here today to be a guest on our talk show.
My pleasure, Rick. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our audience for being a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. John's episode was episode number 1361. If you'd like to be on the show, if you're an Orange County entrepreneur and you have a story to tell, who doesn't? connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to learn more about it and possibly have you as a future guest on the program. You can also visit my website, rickfranzi.com. And until the next time we have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.